What's going on, guys? Zach Evanish here from the Underground Strength Gym, undergroundstrengthgym.com. And I want to discuss a topic that I've been really trying to tackle for many, many years since I've started the Underground, even going back to those early 2000s out of the garage, trying to help change the lives of young athletes and make connections with the high school strength coaches and the high school supervisors, physical education supervisors, as well as athletic directors. So I've got 5 reasons that are certainly not the end all be all, but they're very crucial to why we need expert high school strength and conditioning coaches. And strength and conditioning, first of all, is a blanket term. It means that we're doing strength and conditioning, when really I like to say strength and performance, because there are many facets that fall under the umbrella of the term strength and conditioning. So, number one, with myself being a father of 2 kids who are athletes, and my kids getting closer and closer to that high school level, I keep thinking to myself how often we lose athletes from the underground strength gym to mandatory weight room training. And it's really become a little bit scary because parents, as much as we try to educate them through our Instagram, through our YouTube, through our articles on the blogs, through all of the public speaking that strength coaches like myself do, we're still really missing the bottom line of impacting parents enough where they get together and stand up and go to supervisors and administrators and say, listen, my kid can be better, but because you have a sport coach who is unqualified, doesn't have the expertise to train my son or my daughter, they are falling short of their potential. They have higher risk of injury. And a friend of mine who's a college professor in an exercise science department at a university, he sent me some research studies about injuries in the weight room at the high school level. And then each of those papers showed that more, or the majority of those injuries, came from an unqualified strength coach being in the weight room. So it came from somebody who is running the after school weight room program. They get a stipend. More often than not, it's a football coach. And I'm not saying that if you're a football coach that you are unqualified, but more often than not, the football coaches run the weight room. And the common theme that I see amongst these high school kids who are in football is, as soon as you are on this weight room program with the football coach, you are doing a 1 rep max test every 4 to 6 weeks. Number one, most kids, and I'm talking 85+% easily, and that's being conservative, are not physically or emotionally ready or technically ready for a 1 rep max test. I've seen athletes who cannot do a proper push-up, who cannot do a full range bodyweight squat, tell me that they were tested on a trap bar deadlift, a back squat, a bench press, and a power clean. Now, when these kids tell me they're doing power cleans, I say, okay, demonstrate what the power clean looks like. The majority of the time, I see a round back, pulling from a straight leg position, arching back, legs going way beyond shoulder width stance into more of like a jumping jack back bend. Now, I don't want to turn this into a rant. I want to turn this into the fight for the kids. As a father, whether I'm a strength coach or not, because of my knowledge, I want my kids to have the best. And of course, they'll be training with me. They won't be forced into mandatory weight room. So number one, safety, safety, safety. Injuries and even deaths are occurring with even at the collegiate level, hospitalizations occurring even at the Division I highest level because athletes are unprepared, more so now than they were 10, 15 years ago. Athletes are showing up less physically, and of course, because of that, less mentally ready for intense training. They're just not ready for it. That alone should scare administrators and supervisors into saying, wow, I wonder what's going on in our high school weight room. We should really work to get a qualified expert in there coaching these kids. Safety is number one. If you're injured, you can't play. We've gotten to the extreme of athletes even dying. A qualified strength coach can see a mile away. I don't need to conduct Navy SEAL training for kids who cannot do push-ups, for kids who can't run a quarter mile without, gassing out and collapsing. It's just completely out of control. I mentioned the 1 rep max testing every 4 weeks or every 6 weeks. It's actually completely unnecessary. And if the tests are consistently squat, bench, power clean, I've met a lot of athletes who could squat, bench, and power clean a lot of weight, but they're useless in practice because they're too out of shape. They might have the absolute strength to move heavy poundages for 1 or 2 or 3 reps, but they don't have the stamina to handle a full football practice. They don't have the stamina to handle the rigors of an entire sports season, practicing 4 or 5 days a week, competing once, twice, 3 days a week, depending on your sport. So it's much more than the squat, the bench, and the power clean. That is an outdated method. There are many other things we can do to test. And we can also test different methods and estimate the 1 rep max by looking at exercises and doing 5 repetitions or doing sub max effort. So number one, safety, safety, safety. We're talking to the extreme level. Athletes are dying in these weight rooms or in these high school type programs by unqualified experts, and injuries are going through the roof. If we think about it, I am age 43. Those of you that graduated high school in the early 90s or the late 80s, you are likely a mother or father. Name 5 kids in your high school who had a surgery. You probably could maybe name 1 kid. But now we have sophomores getting Tommy John surgery. We have football players, many of them with ACL injuries. I believe 5 years ago, I heard Kelly Starrett tell me that girls' ACL injuries is up 400% within the past 10 years. And that was somewhere around 2012 or so when he was speaking. So what that percentage of ACL injury rates amongst girls must be even higher now. So with athletes now competing and training year-round in sport, for example, if you play baseball, you have fall ball. Then they have these indoor monster facilities that you could actually play indoor games during the winter. And then you have spring. So now these kids are doing 3 or 4 times the amount of work in 1 year that they used to do in 4 years. So if I only played in the springtime, like the kids played when I was in high school, they also played football, baseball, maybe they wrestled, but they did other sports to develop that athleticism. Back to lesson rule number 2, efficacy and results. This is a common story, but a recent story. A mom signed up her son for, actually, she won a 1 month free that I donated to the high school football booster club. She told me how excited her son was because he trap bar deadlifted 405. And then after that, I'm doing a live video. Do I have to sign this?
I have no clue. Mom just told me to give it to you.
Okay. All right. Live video interrupted.
Sorry. Bye.
So after she told me he deadlifted 405, we go through an assessment through our warm-up that allows me to see where athletes are weak, where they lack this structural integrity, where they lack stability, and if they are capable of, Summer, take the dog upstairs. Nothing better than live video. So after he says deadlifting 405, when we finally got to him doing a trap bar deadlift, which was not on day 1, which was not even in the first 2 weeks, he could not deadlift more than 185 pounds under my guidance, because once he was at 185, his shoulders were slouched, his lower back began to round, and it shows you that, yes, he was able to lift 405 pounds, but he was unable to lift that weight correctly He was unable to lift that weight safely, and unfortunately, he's deadlifting. You have to take the dog upstairs. He's deadlifting twice more than what I found to be safe. And that's the difference between it's the same exercises. He's deadlifting at one place, but when he deadlifts at our place, it's different. You drive a car, but the people racing in NASCAR also drive cars. We're doing the same thing, but we're doing it much differently. You cook in your kitchen, but so does, the five-star chef. We're both cooking, but we're on a different level. Do you see what I'm saying? That's the difference between efficacy and results, and it all comes down to safety. If that kid was consistently allowed to deadlift 405, and then next time he had his 1 rep max, it has to be 415, then 425, he would consistently be repeating unsafe technique that would produce eventually an injury, and not just for the short term, but for the long term. Travis Mash's article spoke about how many injuries through the long term happen through the incorrect coaching during our high school years. Jim Steele told me about how his high school football coach told him to do a straight leg deadlift, legs locked, hunch that back over, and stretch the barbell below your toes. He told me he actually felt something pop in his back, and he said that was likely a big cause for him having to get back surgery. Something that was injured in his teenage years eventually came back to haunt him in his adult years. Long-term safety, that's what I just spoke about. Injuries or incorrect training habits and patterns that happen during the high school years are very much the injuries that start to accumulate through time, and then they rear themselves when you are an adult or 5 to 10 years outside of high school. For example, in a local high school that I went into, I saw the weight room, the whiteboard put up by the football coach, who was a former college football player, and they think that he played football in college. He is now qualified. Well, I've coached at Division I Lehigh, Division I Rutgers, and I've got Division I athletes that need coaching on full range pull-ups, on proper technique of push-ups, on full range proper technique bodyweight squats. So the fact that somebody played Division I sport does not make them qualified to be a high school strength coach. And even if they played a college sport, the kid that put up this program played at Division III, maybe a Division II school. The program was the warm-up, I don't know, floor press, 5 sets of 5, incline dumbbell flies, 4 sets of 12, one-arm overhead shoulder press, 5 sets of 15, skull crushers and curls, 3 sets of max. So we've got pushing, we've got another pushing / fly anterior motion. Now we've got more pushing, and then we have just 3 sets of pulling. We have no shoulder health. We have no balance of pulling or rowing exercises. We have a full-blown old school bodybuilding workout performed in a high school weight room in a place that says, we're good. We don't need your help. That right there is a recipe for destroying kids' shoulders. And really, there's not a lot of time efficiency in that program. What's going on in between the 5 sets of 5 floor press? A lot of talk, a lot of cell phone time. What's the rationale for doing 4 sets of 12 flies in a high school weight room? There's none. Why am I doing 5 sets of 15 of an overhead press? 75 reps of overhead work is a lot of work. Where's the shoulder health? Where's the balance of posterior work to frontal? There is none. And who knows what the warm-up was before they went into that chest workout. This is what's going on in a lot of unqualified high school weight rooms. A lot of people talk about in the educational system, life skills. The lessons I've learned through the weight room changed my life forever. Ask anybody that had a great strength coach. Matt Wenning, world champion powerlifter, consultant for NFL teams, for special forces in the military. He talks about how he was lucky to come across a middle school physical education coach who is also a wrestler prepping for Olympic trials. He speaks about mentors he found in a high school when he was in high school at a YMCA who mentored him before he could start benching heavy. They said you've got to do at least 10 pull-ups before you could get on that bench press. Travis Mash talks about how his high school or collegiate strength coach inspired him to go to the Olympic Training Center to train in Olympic weightlifting. And for me, my mentors came, unfortunately, in bodybuilding, but I learned those weight training life lessons in the weight room. And now I look at the thousands of kids I've trained, thousands upon thousands of kids I've trained. Since 2002, I've been coaching almost 6 days a week, anywhere from 3 to 4 hours up to 8 hours of coaching a day, thousands upon thousands. And many of those kids reach out to me and say, what you taught me, from the dedication, the perseverance through the tough times, being consistent during the in-season, learning how to apply nutrition. I took those lessons of dedication and consistency and perseverance and toughness, and I apply it to my own life. Kids come back after college to train at the underground. Recent athlete who I trained from high school through his college experiences. Now he's in his adult world. He's like, dude, I just take all those lessons I learned to the underground and I apply them to life. The weight room is a vehicle to change lives. Strength must transcend the gym walls. Being strong with a 1-rep max but unable to hold down a job or then dropping out of school, it shows that the strength that was learned in the weight room did not apply to life. And there's ways to create an environment and a culture of excellence in the weight room. And really, if you're an unqualified sport performance coach, you don't really understand how to get kids to believe in themselves, to transform. Some of the best athletes that I've been able to work with, they did not start off as the best. They started off as the slowest, the weakest, the least confident, but through perseverance, through dedication, through discipline, through not giving up, these athletes became champions, not just in sports, but in life. Last thing I want to say, money is often spoken about as like this big issue why we can't afford somebody. And I want to tell you that I have probably spoken with hundreds upon hundreds, I don't know how many hundreds of strength coaches who have told me they've reached out to all the local sport coaches, football, volleyball, soccer, basketball. They've reached out to athletic directors, health and physical education supervisors, and they don't even get a response to their emails. I live in a small town, Manasquan, New Jersey, 2 square miles. I have even had meetings with the athletic director, who is now retired, but he did not respond to any of my emails. And when I finally had a meeting with him, after probably 5 or 6 emails, he was asking me like who I was, meaning he probably deleted every single email. Unfortunately, and I blame myself for this, is that sometimes the supervisors and the athletic directors, the people that are in charge, are not the ones with the best intentions. And because some of us coaches are so passionate about coaching, it's a double-edged sword. We fear leaving the coaching and we don't get into the administrative roles. And then the wrong people get into the administrative roles who may not be the best coaches. So is money an issue? I know hundreds upon hundreds of local strength coaches, independent strength coaches, who have offered to volunteer their time. It's so expensive, it's free, as I always say, and not a word is responded to them. Nobody replies to them. It's not so complicated. If they're accepted into the program, they could apply to be a substitute teacher. They go through the background check. They do the fingerprinting. People make it like it's too complicated to get a volunteer. That's wrong. There's many volunteer sport coaches, but why are strength coaches not allowed in there? Well, maybe the football coach wants his $5,000 or $6,000 stipend for the year for running the weight room and doesn't want to give it up. But the bottom line is, listen, who's better? Do that. The kids deserve the best. It's not about your ego. The kids deserve it. You might think that because you've read 100 articles or watched 100 YouTube videos, or you watched, the latest NFL workout, that you know what you're doing, but it's not that easy. In fact, the human body is extremely complicated. And now more than ever, I'm seeing young athletes who need a lot of individualized tweaks that allow them to build into the basics of squat, bench, power clean, and even at the college level, even at a top 10 Division I team of athletic people, they need to be taught how to power clean. They need to be taught how to squat. There's been teachers that said to me running weightlifting classes, I keep telling them to keep their back flat, but they just won't listen. Aha. The expert knows that it has nothing to do with them not listening. The expert knows that you could say, keep your back flat till you're blue in the face. I can't keep my back flat until I'm strong enough to keep my back flat. A weak muscle cannot maintain position. That's the bottom line. Safety, safety, safety. The money thing is really ridiculous. There are so many ways to do fundraising. And number two, I could probably, ask hundreds of independent strength coaches who live in their town, have a gym in that town. Have you reached out to do volunteer work? Yes, I have. What have you heard? Crickets. So the bottom line is it comes down to safety. And when will we make the push? There are certain cities and states that have made the push for a qualified performance coach. And there's places like the Carolinas, Georgia, Texas, some places in Florida. I found some of the Midwest states have done it, like Iowa, Minnesota. I keep tabs and look online as to who's opening up job positions for qualified sport performance coaches. And I've seen other people say, I have 20 years of experience. 20 years of experience doing what? Training yourself as a bodybuilder. That does not make you qualified as a sport performance coach. After seeing thousands upon thousands of kids, myself, and the changes and the de-evolution of how they're able to perform since 2002, and really I started working with people in 95, but athletes specifically and predominantly around 2002. We're getting close to 8, 16, 17 years on that. The amount of things I've seen that cannot be seen by the common eye is quite interesting. Even kids that are going through exercise science internships, it's not just the internship you go through, it's this never-ending learning. Even now, age 43, I've been exercising since age 12. I find myself feeling the need to learn more. I put up this book. I'm probably going through a new book every 3 to 4 days and reviewing many of these other books. Kids deserve the best. We've got kids dying and getting severe injuries that literally limit or eliminate their opportunities to compete in college or have proper health in their adult years because of crap going on in high school weight rooms. If schools are all about the kids, I challenge you as parents and supervisors and athletic directors to find a qualified sport performance coach in your area to work with those kids. Create a weightlifting elective. It should really be called strength and conditioning because I think weightlifting is a little bit unassuming. They think they're going to be power cleaning and doing deadlifts when they're too weak to even do a pull-up, push-up, or bodyweight squat. The experts need to be in there. Why? It's all about the kids. That's it. I'm Zach Evnish from the Underground Strength Gym. If you're a supervisor, parent, and so forth, and you want to send me an email, go to zachevnish.com. The link is below. There's a contact button, and you can reach out to us. Boom. Talk to you soon, guys. Thanks for watching.